What's going on, guys? Dan with PC Tech Hustle coming at you with another video, and today I got for you guys a video that I'm going to cover what I consider to be the three main aspects to doing any PC build. Those three aspects being 1, picking out the parts, 2, the build itself, and 3, the benchmarks to validate our build. We're also going to be sticking strictly to a $1,000 budget to get the most price to performance we possibly can out of our dollar. So let's get cracking into that, coming at you right now. Alrighty guys, so let's start with the first aspect being picking out the parts. But before we do that, if you guys are new here and you enjoy PC builds like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and don't forget to tick that bell notification icon. That way you're informed of whenever I drop my latest content. So let's pan over to PC Part Picker here to start picking out those parts and get this build underway. Alrighty guys, so we're here over on PC Part Picker, by the way, of which if you guys have never used PC Part Picker, I highly recommend it as a site to go to. It's really a site I use to just kind of go part sourcing and getting the best price, not necessarily looking for build guides or things like that, though they do have that on there, so if you want to go take a look at that, feel free. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're already logged into our account, so we're just going to go ahead and go to System Builder and just do this in the raw new format. So what do we got here? We need to start with a CPU. So honestly, in nowadays time, I really can't recommend anything other than Ryzen as something that we're gonna help stick to the budget with. So what's a good middle ground Ryzen CPU? Well, 3600 is what comes to mind. So let's go see if we can find us a decently priced 3600. So I'm just going to go to choose CPU. It's literally at the top of the list. Okay. So AMD 5 Ryzen 3600 add. All right, there we go. That was easy. All right, so yeah, it's $171. We're just going to keep going and see where we kind of land. And if we need to make some alterations to the list, that's where we'll go. We've got the Ryzen 3600. Next, let's go find us a motherboard. So sticking to a $1,000 budget, we're not going to be able to go get probably a very fancy motherboard, something like the latest and greatest X570 board. So I'm going to see if we can find like a B450 board that supports Ryzen 3000. That is honestly probably going to be our best option for a $1,000 budget. Some things to note here is what we want to do is we want to come down and plug in some filters. So we're looking for B450. Let's just go ahead and put in B550, although that's brand new. We may not get very good pricings on that. And X570. I really kind of want like an ATX board just to try to get some more full feature sets. Not being super kind of basic, so usually that's what you find on micro ATX boards. Just gonna keep it strictly to ATX and see what we got. And again, we're gonna sort by lowest price and okay. So this is what we got. Right at the top, we have a B450. Oh, and actually, I forgot to mention, we need some Wi-Fi because this is actually a client build. Let's go with select wireless. They do Wi-Fi 6 and 5. Those are your Wi-Fi standards nowadays. So again, sorting by smallest price. Man, I was hoping for some options that were a bit under, like, more options that were under $150, but we don't have a ton. This cheapest one that we have here, actually I've used this board before. It's the B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi, but it is, I don't know if it's Ryzen 3000 ready, to be flat honest. Any comments here that suggest it being Ryzen? Well, okay, so here's one thing that you can use to, with PC Part Picker. If we add this to our list, it should flag if, oh, there it is right here. Compatibility warning, these are there's potential issues that this may not be compatible, and that's what I'm talking about with the Ryzen 3000 ready. This board might be shipping with an older BIOS version. It's very possible, especially now with B550 out and X570, that they're not really shipping out new B450 boards. B450s are gonna basically come off the shelf. So I kind of don't like this too much. Honestly, let's back out of this board here and see what other options we have. Looking for some more boards. The next thing actually that comes up is another Gigabyte board. Asus TUF Gaming as well. Both of these are Wi-Fi boards. I am particularly partial to the Gigabyte boards. I love my Aorus products, so let's take a look here at this Gigabyte board. It's the same price as that Asus Strix, I'm sorry, Tough Gaming. Yeah, we bumped up a price quite a bit, $189. All right, so really honestly, guys, we don't have a lot of options in regards to a B450. I was hoping we could find a B450 under like 150, maybe 150 max, but we got some things going on in the markets right now with the pandemic going around, causing issues with part availability. That's one issue, and then secondly, B550 has released, so I don't think many of the manufacturers are really focusing on supporting or really doing anything much more with B450. So B550 it is, but unfortunately that also causes our price to come up. So yeah, let's take a look back at our Gigabyte board here that we had picked out. So Gigabyte B550 Pro AC still looks like a pretty sweet board, honestly. Like, I can definitely say that anything that's basically modern Aorus parts, whatever you call it, Gigabyte stuff, great products. So let's just add it. We want it. We know it's gonna be good. Oh, look, it's out of stock in Amazon, but oh, okay, B&H has it, so we can still add it. All right, here we go, add. All right, so for memory, we want to target a good memory frequency speed to pair with our Ryzen, because as we all know, Ryzen definitely thrives off those high speeds. I don't think going anything beyond 3600 is really necessary, so let's kind of target that mark. We could dip a little lower if we need to kind of pinch the dollar a bit. That might be where we have to come back and make some variants, but let's look for some 3600 memory. Over here, we're gonna go to choose memory, and I'm gonna plug in some filters here. So we want 16 gigs as well, as that's kind of the sweet spot for gaming. You really don't need any more than that. So we're gonna select 2 by 8 gigabyte sticks. Come over here to speed. Let's just plug in a flat 3600. We're really just kind of targeting that speed. And then sort by our lowest price here. What do we got? Ooh, I like these black G-Skill Ripjaws. They definitely go well with the board color. These reds will kind of stick out like a sore thumb. These G-Skill, what is that, like camo? What is that? Weird. Yeah, let's go with let's see what this is. So we got black colored G-Skill, 3600 megahertz. What's its cast latency at? 18. That's pretty respectable. Honestly, anything lower than 18, 16 is kind of like a more higher performance variant, and then anything below that, as you can see, you're dipping into like super tight timings, which is going to be very expensive. The differences between cast latency 16 and 18 is basically within, you won't even be able to tell. So let's just, we want this. This is also a fantastic price, $65. So we are adding that for sure. That is a win. All right, storage. A way to blow the budget real fast is storage. So kind of think about things within means. Do you need to have a ton of storage up front, or are you got a $1,000 budget, you want to get gaming now, you can add some games, and then maybe add another drive later on so you can have some more games. What we want to do here is, I'd say probably a 500 gigabyte-ish drive is definitely a fantastic starter level drive. I used to think less until games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out and requires literally like 200 plus 250-ish gigabytes of space, which is insane. Even with a 512-ish gigabyte drive, that still leaves quite a bit of headroom for other games. That way you can still get very well started with your machine and expand later. Again, we're just not really partial to brand here. We're just looking to plug in our filters based on what we need. Now we want NVMe, right? Let's make sure we plug that in. Let's find our capacity filter. Here we go. Let's make 750 our ceiling. Actually, you know what? Let's make 1 terabyte our ceiling, even though I think 1 terabyte is still gonna be kind of pricey for what we're trying to meet here. And then start at, let's get it on 500 gigabytes. There we go. All right, and let's check our prices at lowest. Ooh, I mean, actually, wow. I'm prices on NVMe have dropped. Wow, and these are some good brands here. You got Crucial, Patriot, Intel 660p. All these are 500. I mean, wow, that's exactly what we need, and we don't want to spend a ton. I would say out of these, Crucial has been in the SSD game for a long time. Patriot, Intel too, but let's just go with that. It's a well-known brand. A lot of people go with this. I've heard of the Crucial P1 being a very reputable product. Let's just add it. So actually, let's take a look at where we're at with budget. We are at $486. What we have left: video card, case, and power supply. Not too much left to go after, but here's where you can definitely, with video card being our next item, you can definitely really break the budget fast. What I'm thinking is I really want to target a 2060 Super. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to come in under, you know, $1,000, but let's see what happens. Let's just plug in 2060 Super as our search item here. 2060 Super, and we want lowest price. PNY Dual. I didn't even know PNY made a video card, so I'm not really gonna lean on that too much. Okay, so we're basically spending $400 for a video card. Wow, the next thing here is actually the Reference Founders Edition RTX 2060 Super for $399. Then we got a gigabyte version for basically the same price, Zotac, and EVGA. Man, I love my EVGA products. Like, I don't even have to be convinced. Adding that. Let's see where we get with that. So we're at $886. So what do we got left? Case and power supply. This is gonna be tight because I know power supplies right now really suck in price. So let's get the case out of the way. I don't wanna spend any more than $50 to $70 on a case because you don't need to. Like, basically beyond that, it just becomes something that you're really, you're trying to build for aesthetics, something like that, you know, that Thermaltake View 71 with 15 freaking fans and Thermaltake Ring Trio fans. You don't need all that. Let's tailor our search for our maximum ceiling. Let's make it 85 bucks, starting at around 50, so we don't get the super cheap cruddy cases that you normally find in budget builds, things that I've done before. Let's go over here to price. Yep, that's all we're gonna do, is we're just gonna filter on price. Wow, it's amazing that you can actually make this filter upwards of $3,000. What case costs $3,000? Actually, I just wanna know. What is this? It's a DIY PC and it costs $3,000. I don't know how that happens, but wow, what the heck? Look at that price. $25.35 for probably one of the ugliest, trashiest DIY PC cases I've ever seen. How does that happen? Anyway, sorry, I just had to entertain that for a second. Back to what we were actually doing. Let's tailor our filter to 85 bucks. Let's just make it 100. Yeah, okay, 97. And we're gonna start at 50. There we go. All right, what do we got? Lowest price, here we go. Yeah, we're gonna probably run in some more DIY PC cases. I want something that is ATX compatible. I think you can plug that filter in. Yes, you can. You can plug that filter in, but this is why I love PC Part Picker. Like, I really can just boil down exactly what I want. Okay, so now we got ATX compatible cases. Let's kind of get into the $60 range. Okay, what do we got here? A lot of these are these typical, what you see is kind of very cheap, purpose-built PC cases. Let's start looking. Yeah, here we go. NZXT H510. That I know. Ooh, what is that going for? $69, and it's got tempered glass. Now it's white. Does that fit our build as far as price? Sure. You can get this case in different colors too. White actually typically is the more expensive, so let's make sure we're not missing out on the 510 that is in black that is cheaper. Okay, so I did a quick little search. The H510 is basically universally the same price, which I think probably makes more sense. I never understood why, if it's white, it makes it more expensive. It's just another paint color. But NZXT didn't do silly things with that, so I'm gonna go with black just because most people go with black cases, but know that, look, that you got options. White is the same price as black, which is also the same price as the black with the red cable management strip, so let's just go with the default black. All right, not bad. So $69 for this guy at Best Buy, which has the best price right now. Lord, Amazon is $87. Stick away from Amazon on that one. All right, so we're at $956. Ooh. I don't like that because I don't feel like we're gonna get a power supply for good price. But let's see what we got here. Let's choose a power supply. Really have basically less than $50 to spend on a power supply. What I would say for this type of build, you want probably a minimum of, yeah, you can get by with like 500, 550 watts, but you don't have a lot of expansion room for the future, or just generic headroom. I would honestly say your minimum be like 600, and maybe your maximum be 700 to 750 watt, just for something like that. Now, the good thing also about PC Part Picker too is it actually shows you that stuff. So it kind of gives you your estimated wattage requirements. So if you're really trying to squeeze, you definitely could, but know that you probably don't have a lot of expansion room beyond, you know, kind of what PC Part Picker is telling you. But anyway, let's stick with 600 to 750-ish watts. Let's also, again, go down to our filters. I'm gonna plug in 600 watts, and we don't need any more than 700 to 750, 750 being the absolute, like, honestly, you don't need, again, even that close to that amount, but we're just putting that in as a filter. And we're going by price, by lowest again. And we have some really cruddy ones up top, which actually fit our budget, but I don't like these. Like, I would prefer, if we're going with the components that we have, we at least have a bronze rated power supply, because that is definitely going to carry you longer. It's gonna be safer on your components. Typically the warranties on those types of power supplies are very much longer than just these cruddy ones that you see. But what's catching my eye here real quick is, yeah, we have some Thermaltake smarts that I've definitely recommended and used before in the past, though the cables aren't very good looking, and if we're spending $1,000, I'd like to have like a decent looking power supply. So the next thing I see here is an EVGA BR 80 plus bronze, 600 watt. That basically fits the bill. All right, we're adding it. I mean, now the good thing about this power supply too is, like I mentioned, it's got the black cables, which look good. It doesn't have the ketchup and mustard cables like you see with some of the cheaper ones. And we're spending $1,000, so we want our stuff to kind of look good too. We'll add that, and Newegg has it available for $68.99. I'm a little afraid to scroll down because I know we blew our budget. Blew it by 25 bucks. So now some things to talk about here. As you might have noticed from one of my previous videos too, the Ryzen 3600 runs hot. Where we could do some wiggle room here, right? Don't necessarily need a B550 board. We can go with, and you don't necessarily need Wi-Fi. So if Wi-Fi is not something that you absolutely need, or not even intending to use, you're gonna drop a lot off the price of that motherboard. In fact, you're gonna drop likely between $30 and $50 worth, where you can go actually pick up a B450 board that is not Wi-Fi capable or built in, and boom, you're under budget, right? But because the Ryzen 3600, like I mentioned, runs hot, I'd really like to allocate money for a cooler, right? If we go in and add a cheap cooler, let's just see where that budgets us at. Hyper 212 is what I used, like I mentioned in the previous video, to get temperatures under control, and that's what I would recommend as kind of a very good starting level cooler. And it's kind of hilarious, as I mentioned, that when I click on coolers, we see two Hyper 212s within the top of the list. Hyper 212 Black, man, it's such a sexy cooler too. Let's just get it. This is gonna fit the bill. It's a great cooler. We know it's gonna pull temperature off. So let's go and add it. So now we've got basically the full comprehensive build. Now, we did break our budget, right? But we got wiggle room. As I mentioned, we have wiggle room with the motherboard, and we potentially have some wiggle room with the RAM, though the RAM is kind of cheap. I don't know if we're gonna get much more wiggle room if we go down to, say, 3200 megahertz. But the area I see we can get the most wiggle room is definitely in the motherboard. Don't need to go with B550. In fact, let's just take a quick look at that if we don't include Wi-Fi. and we just get a B450 that supports Ryzen 3000 if we can knock the price down by 60 bucks, because right now we're sitting at 1061. Now, thinking about that in retrospect, 1061 kind of fits within the $1,000 budget. You know, some of these prices might change in variants. You know, there might be some things that you can keep an eye on and buy when the parts are at lower price. Like I mentioned, power supplies, they're crazy expensive right now, and you can definitely get a 600 watt for less than almost $70. But to satisfy our curiosity here, let's go back over to motherboard. Let's take off a Wi-Fi built-in board. Let's just go strictly for function. So what do we have to do? We have to make that board basically $60 cheaper. So our maximum price needs to be about 100. Let's just put in 145, and let's just target B450. And we are just looking at everything. Here we go. Awesome. So Tomahawk B450 Max. Boom. Actually, wow, the prices. This is great. And the Max version supports Ryzen 3000. This is exactly what we need. All right, so we knocked off the $60 we're looking for. Actually, perfect. So let's add. Where are we at now? Okay, so we knocked off roughly $60 off the motherboard, which we need to fall down on that $1,000 price. Ooh, we are under $996. So, and the great thing about that is we got an upgraded CPU cooler, which I highly recommend for Ryzen 3000. 3600 specifically. Yeah, the 3600X comes with a little bit better cooler, but man, I mean, we nailed it. And we got a RTX 2060 Super from EVGA. I mean, you literally, I don't think, you can't squeeze more performance out of this. Impossible, right? Because where else could you squeeze more performance? Your really only major categories that you can squeeze performance, things that you would feel and notice big time, would be in your CPU or in your GPU. And the next step up for CPU and GPU are vastly more expensive. So, I mean, this is basically it as far as the bee's knees to nail down a $1,000 budget and get basically the best price to performance as possible. Alrighty guys, so there is the complete list for a $1,000 budget build. Budget meaning sticking to the $1,000 range. Also, I think we pretty much nailed down everything as far as how to get the most performance out of our dollar here. I don't really see an area here that we missed or could have really got much more. Maybe pinch a couple areas, but honestly, you know, I think we nailed it. So feel free to use my link down below in the description, which will be the link for this build for the PC part picker list, as well as links to some affiliate marketing that, you know, obviously help give me a little bit of kickback to the channel, helps me keep producing content for you guys. So consider that if you're doing a purchase. Other than that, we'll have a second part video coming along after this one, after I obviously get the parts in, and that will cover the actual build process as a step-by-step guide. So stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss that. And before you guys go, make sure you do the YouTube thing, right? Give me a like if you enjoyed this content. Give me a comment. I'm curious, you know, would you have picked out parts differently than I did, or do you prefer one particular brand over the other? Let me know. I want to hear from you. Other than that, guys, make sure you check out a couple of these videos here too, as obviously it helps the YouTube algorithm and helps my channel grow. But thanks for tuning into this one. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.